Hi. Hi. I wanted to chat a little bit more about what happens when we lose that feeling of love in our relationships. We spoke about that on a post recently, and some people wanted to hear a bit more about it. So, and I mean, who doesn't, right? If ever you've been in a relationship before for a long period of time, then you will know that, after a certain amount of time, we start to kind of lose that loving feeling. And what does that look like? For most of us, it means that we know we love the person, and we know they're good for us. So we're not talking about situations where they may not be the right person for you. You know that they are, but they just piss you off more than you feel stoked by them, or enough that it's not okay. You find yourself rolling your eyes more than getting that fluttering feeling in your heart. And especially at the moment when we've been in isolation with our partners, if you're living with your partner, it's really highlighted, it's really magnified. And I want to talk about this. This is an age-old thing, right? Like, how do we keep that loving feeling in our relationships long term? And can we? And why is it there? Why does it happen? Why does it erode? This is a really deep and complex topic. There's two areas of it that I want to speak to. And I'll speak to it as briefly as possible and give as much information as I possibly can in this format. The first thing is that usually when we go into a relationship and we think that we love someone, we don't. Usually when we go into a relationship, what we're experiencing is infatuation or desire. And I think the best way to describe this is using a simple kind of analogy that I'm pretty sure it's Esther Perel said this when I first heard it put this way, who's amazing when it comes to the difference between desire and love. Anyway, she talks about imagining that you want something. So, desire is pretty much the experience of wanting something. So the best way to think about this for me is when it's the end of the week and I want a glass of wine or some really good chocolate. And I can imagine it. And so do this yourself right now. Think about something that you tend to desire, that you tend to want, not a person, a thing, and imagine it in front of you. So for me, I'm imagining it's Friday night, it's the end of the week, there's that beautiful glass of yummy red wine sitting there, and I really, really want it, and I can feel it in my body. So imagine what that feels like. You feel it in your body, like you have that desire. For me, I feel warm in my heart and a kind of a pulling feeling. I start to salivate. That's desire. That's the feeling of desire. And that feeling, we actually enjoy that feeling. It makes us feel alive. It's great to feel desire for something. Now, when I get that glass of wine and I start drinking it, how does that alter the feeling that I'm having? It alters it quite a lot. So imagine doing that. Imagine having now the thing that you wanted. Do this with me so you can really get it. And you have that feeling, and now I feel satiated, and I feel good, and I feel happy, and I like it. But what's happened to the feeling of desire? It's gone. I can't actually desire something that I have. Desire, by its very definition, is the experience of wanting something. So once we have it, the desire is gone. Now, let's translate this into relationships. I mean, where am I going with this, right? If there's someone that you want, then you feel desire. Now, let's say you're dating them, but then you want more. You want a commitment. Then you want a family. You want all the things, right? So there's always these levels of desire. Now, once we get into the relationship in its long-term kind of way that it's going to be, so you've hit most of the marks that you want, what happens to desire? We don't really have it anymore. Once you have the thing that you want, you don't feel desire anymore. And this is okay. This is normal, natural, and okay. Now, I hear a lot of people out there talking about and fighting really against nature. Like, how do we keep desire in the relationship and all that kind of thing? Now, I'm going to have a little bit of a different voice about this and suggest that rather than fighting to keep the same type of desire we've had initially, we can cultivate love. Now, love, on the other hand, is almost the opposite thing to desire. So love is about feeling satiated. It's about feeling warm. It's about feeling secure. Desire is insecure by its nature, and that's exciting. Love is security by its nature. Now, that is not exciting. It's warm. It's relaxed. It's calm. It's safe. They're two different things. So let's just get that clear off the bat, that often when we think we've lost the loving feeling, we haven't. We've lost the desire. So let's just consider that to begin with. if you're in a relationship and the desire is waning, what can you do? Well, there's a few things you can do. One is that you can cultivate love as opposed to desire. Now, love in itself is, as I spoke about in another little post, it's a profound experience. It's a spiritual experience, really. It's transpersonal at the very least. So love is something that we need to cultivate. Now, here's the thing. Most of us have a very damaged experience of love. And this is the other area that I want to speak about, the other part to this topic. And again, I could go very much deeper into what we just spoke about, but of course, this is Facebook, our attention spans are only so long. So let's just look at the other aspect. We can cultivate desire. Now, the problem with, we can cultivate love. Now, the problem with that is that we have a kind of screwed up idea of what love is. Now, for all of us, our idea of what love is comes from our first experiences of love and loving relationships, usually from our family of origin. Now, no matter how wonderful your family of origin is, they're human, and therefore their projection of love is going to be flawed. The only perfect experience of love is that universal, transpersonal, spiritual experience of love. So if you've cultivated your idea of love through a spiritual practice, then that's great. However, when it comes to human interaction and human love, loving one human to another, our experience is flawed. And just like we cultivate programs or habits which are forged through neural pathways in our nervous system, within ourself, we also forge pathways or neural pathways within our relationships. So we get into habits. Now, when you go into a relationship with somebody, if you're going into the loving aspect of relationship or starting to do love in your relationship, then it's inevitable that you will approach it from your past experiences. These are the neural pathways that we have. And that means that you will look for things to protect yourself from. And inevitably will find something. And even if those things aren't there, we will often react to the situation of relating. We'll react to that from past experiences. So for instance, let's say, the very first time you went on a roller coaster, you threw up. Now, you were 8, and, that's going to happen. Now, you haven't been on a roller coaster for a long, long time, and then when you're 21, you go with a bunch of friends, and that you see the roller coaster, you're an adventurous person, you love having adventure, but you won't go on it, you start feeling sick in your stomach, you don't know why, you get really freaked out, and you just don't go on it, you go home and tell your parents, and they say, yeah, when you were 8, this is what happened. So this is an embedded experience. This is a program or a neural pathway. This is a past experience that we're bringing forward into the present. That's what we do, and we do it unconsciously. We do this in our relationships too. So as soon as we start to be in a relationship with somebody, even though we know that we love them, even we know that they're good for us, we start to respond to them and react to them and their behavior from our past experiences. And we very quickly turn a present experience that may be extremely awesome into an internal experience from the past. So what we can do though, this is the really cool thing. So to create new pathways, new patterns, new programs, we need to engage our more elevated or our the more evolved part of our brain, the frontal lobe. And the really good news here is this: the frontal lobe turns on from novelty, from something new. When we're doing something new, completely new that we've never done before, the frontal lobe goes, oh, cool, something's going on here, and we grab its attention. That means when we enter into a new relationship and you get that amazing feeling and you have desire, and then you go into this kind of blissful, ecstatic state because you're tapping into something new, the part of your brain that needs to turn on to create a new pathway is turned on. So this is the perfect opportunity for us to override old programs and write new ones. But we can't just go into it and go, oh, I feel in love, and let's just go, because I promise you if you do that, eventually your old programs will come up. So what we want to do instead is cultivate a practice right off the bat, right from the beginning. Practice loving in a new way. Practice unconditional, transpersonal love, not just for yourself and for the world, but in a way that is directed to your partner as well. This is a profound thing to do. And if you can do this in the beginning of your new relationship, I promise you that you will have a different experience. Now, for those of us who weren't lucky enough to know this before entering into a relationship and you're already in one and you feel like you have lost that loving feeling, well, guess what? You're stuffed. No, you're not really. Sorry, that may have been a little bit inappropriate, but it's fine. You can do that now too. It's not as it's a little bit more work, but just a little bit, because it's still possible though, because we can still get that frontal lobe engaged by just doing a new practice. So in the same way, we need to practice a new pathway. It's like a line of communication. And that can be words, that can be energy, it can be the way that you approach things, the way that you see things, but we need to do it in a new way, and we need to practice it in love. So we need to drive in a pathway of lovingness, and for a lot of people, a lot of my clients, and myself included, at a time, we might find it easier to think of it as a pathway of kindness, because sometimes we can get confused as to what love is. Now, it's a practice though. And the more that we practice it, the more profound the outcomes will be. And I have had these outcomes myself in my current relationship, and it's been phenomenal. The outcome, the effect, is two ways, even if just one of you is doing the practice. And what happens is, as you start to practice and drive in those new pathways of kindness and love in a new way, in a healthy way, then you start to automatically relate differently and you literally become a new person. However, the disclaimer with any of the work that I do is that it's not going to work for you unless you genuinely want to change. Now, changing, I think of it like this. Changing is when I hate the cold. So when I'm in a really cold room and I'm wearing thin clothing, it's inappropriate clothing, so I'm feeling pretty cold. And just over there, I have my Ugg boots, my thermals, and beautiful woolen jumper, and a nice warm hat, and just super cozy clothes. Now, I know what it's going to feel like to get into those clothes, and it's going to be so much better. But in order to do that, I need to take off the thin clothing that I'm wearing, and that's going to be freaking freezing, and I hate that feeling. I get goosebumps, and I hate it. So how much do I want to be warm in that beautiful warm clothing, and what uncomfortable experience am I willing to go through? Now, I can tell you, for me, I'm that person who is very willing to change, even when it's uncomfortable. So if you want to have genuinely loving relationships that continue to be loving, so not based just on desire, but based in actual love, so where you feel warm, expanded, safe, met, and you feel a genuine positive regard for the other person continuously, and you even get to know them more and more as the time goes on, and you get to respect them more and more as the time goes on, rather than starting to think that they're just annoying. You start to have more, you value them more and more as the time goes on. Then there genuinely is a way you just need to want to change and do the work. So how do we do it? We need to create new pathways of relating that are based on love. And we can do that through practice. And I have also created a very, very simple tool to do this. It's like a sort of like a meditation, sort of like a visualization. And we're using very basic neuroscience, very basic, very simple, to affect this long-term change. And I will share it with you all when it's ready. And if you stay on here, I'm going to give it away in the beginning to a bunch of people, because I just want everyone to be doing it. So stay connected and keep your eyes and ears open for that tool. And in the meantime, have a really good think about it, about if you really want to change and what that would mean for you. And I know there's a big conversation around desire as well, and we can talk more about that in another live. Maybe I'll do that next week. But if you've enjoyed this and you've gotten a bit out of it, hi everyone. Sorry, I couldn't see who was watching until now. There's a few people there. Hi Lulu. Hi beautiful. Hi Bruce. Hi, Tina. Hi, guys. Um, if you have any questions about this, or your own thoughts or your own ideas, your own experience around this, I'd love to hear from you and get the conversation going, because it's always wonderful to hear more from other people as well, and to hear real experiences. So love to you all, and thanks so much for watching, and let's keep the conversation going.